Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Nadia Boutawi, and welcome to the Healthcare Tech Lunchtime Talk. I am honored today to be joined by Shankar Poncelet, the CEO of Shankx, and a friend. Shankx is a full service marketing agency in San Antonio, Texas. It specializes in helping medical and wellness companies grow their clinics. He's also the chapter leader of the San Antonio Free Market Medical Association, FMMA. Welcome, Shankar. Great to have you with me.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Thank you, Nadia. It's so great to be on your show. And
Awesome.
I'm sure we will provide a lot of value today.
Absolutely. So, you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yes, absolutely. So I'll start with something that you should all know. It is the first lesson in digital marketing, and that is tell a good story. People like
Absolutely.
stories, right?
Mhm,
So especially when we have a presentation like this, why not
mhm,
give people a story about yourself? And that's what I will do now because I have quite, I would say, a non-traditional background.
mhm,
So I'm going to show you a few pictures. We'll travel back in time. Okay, so here you can see me in 2003. Yes, I was a law enforcement officer, not even here in the United States. I was in Luxembourg and I was very active in the red light district. You can see me there talking to someone who was affected by the ailment of addiction. And then here you can see that was what every night looked like for me. Everything was red light district. And the reason I'm telling this is because it connects to why I am so passionate about what I'm doing nowadays, which is being an expert in healthcare marketing. And that is a very important component of this. You have to show your passion, you have to show your personality, you have to have your why, right? So this was the first 5 years. I was in law enforcement for about 10 years. And the first 5 years, I was in the streets, if you will, fighting human trafficking, prostitution, drugs. And then in the second part of my career, I was an international financial fraud investigator. And that was also very insightful because doing that, having been exposed to both worlds, I knew the highs and lows of society. I knew how difficult, bad, and painful it could be if you were on the streets and had to really make it every day to survive. And I also knew how difficult it could be if you belonged to the upper elite and you almost had so much money that you became greedy and you had to kind of numb your senses to
mhm,
to still feel something, right? And this all has really put me on a path where I fulfilled my dream, which was and is immigration to the United States. And after 10 years, do something different. And I became, as I said, a healthcare marketer. Here you see a picture of me and Mr. Steve Forbes, and that was taken last year at a conference, the Free Market Medical Association conference. And it is just so beautiful when you can actually meet people that are deeply involved in your industry, and that is something that you also in digital marketing strategies, you want to show that to people. You want to show that you care enough that you meet other people who educate and promote the same cause. Okay, so this picture here would kind of show an overview. In 2002, a cop in Luxembourg. In 2022, a healthcare marketer. And I found my niche, which is something that is very important in marketing. You don't want to be the
mhm,
person who tries to target everyone, use the shotgun approach. You
mhm,
want to be someone who speaks to a specific problem. And yeah, as it's mentioned on this slide here, I also, besides running a healthcare marketing agency, became very active in a movement called the free market medicine, which is an alternative healthcare delivery model that we might talk more about today.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is also, by the way, another intelligent marketing strategy to not only position yourself as someone who's trying to market the service and to sell a product, but also become very active in a movement that is, if you will, tangentially situated to what you are doing. For example, if there are a lot of physicians, healthcare advisors, vendors, suppliers who are interested in making healthcare more affordable, more transparent, more
Yeah.
accessible, and if I can become part of that, well, that is great because I get to know all of these amazing people. And also, as a nice side effect, if you will, I get to be one of the only marketers within a space where everyone else happens to be in my target audience, right? And this
Yeah.
is, by the way, another uh, secret tip here that I included in my introduction, that if you can do that, because I get that question all the time, is, well, how can I not appear salesy, right? Because whenever I show up somewhere and I visibly try to just talk about my services, or at least that's how people perceive me,
Yeah.
then they block me off. And this is
Yeah.
one way, right? Just
Yeah.
use your passion for this industry that you are serving and become active in also a movement that promotes good things happening in it.
That's awesome. I believe that your story is a beautiful example for the audience out there that within a 10-year span, if you put your mind to something, you make it happen. And Shankar, you're like a beautiful example of what's called the American dream. Like, you work hard, you focus, you do your work day in, day out. You are involved. It's not about your why is not only about the business side, but being part of change, being part of that movement for the alternative medical delivery model, the FMMA. Um, so yeah, that is very inspiring. Even though I've known you for a few months now, I'm always like inspired that you've moved from being a cop, like you've seen hands-on, the disparities, and now you are involved in making sure that those disparities, there are solutions out there that can tackle those head on. So that takes us like to we've seen those disparities, especially in the last 2 years, and we've seen the digital transformation that happened. So, especially in the medical field, that there was the adoption of the delivering healthcare through, online. You don't have to go to the hospital, and the patients nowadays, they are very savvy. They would shop for their healthcare as they would shop for other products, and they have the information in their fingertip. So my question is like, how does that affect like the digital marketing part? But before we get to that, how is the digital marketing different from the digital marketing in other spaces? So what's your take on that?
Yeah, the digital marketing in healthcare, how it is different. Well, I think one of the foundational differences is that in a lot of other industry segments, you can do a lot of things that you cannot do in healthcare. For instance, uh, it is very tricky if you would reveal any type of clinical information, right? You can really not put yourself in a situation where it remotely looks like you give professional medical advice, because if someone were to take that too literally and run with it, you would probably become liable and risk a lawsuit, right? That is something that is really very, very different. Um, so you have to be able to be very creative in healthcare marketing to talk, to have a conversation without being able to directly talk about what may be your service or your product. The other challenge is the one about people's privacy
Mm-hmm.
and understanding that we live in times where the general mindset is one where people want data privacy and they don't want you to leverage any information about them that may give you insight into their health situation to then target them, right? So you there's two camps in that, and the one camp says, well, if we want to be efficient marketers and if our clients want efficient results, then we should be able to use big data information and then use that to target, to show very specific ads to specific people. And the other camp is, no, I want my online privacy, I want my privacy, and I don't want that, right? And I can tell you that generally speaking, policy is clearly going in the direction where knowing too much about people is not desired anymore. As a matter of fact, if you use, for example, the platform Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
which still is one of the most affordable ways to get a lot of eyes on advertising if you choose paid advertising, they are very strict around your also your language and the way you target people, right? For
Yeah.
instance, if you were to, for example, say, oh yes, we know that people who belong to a certain demographic group have a
Mm-hmm.
tendency to eat fatty foods. And in this city, in this area of town, we know that is very prevalent. So if you want to fight your obesity, you should
Mm-hmm.
consider this. That is way too specific for Facebook,
Mm-hmm.
right? They will shut that down. So you need to know how to navigate that and adjust your language in a respectful and non-discriminatory way so that your marketing efforts are not shut down.
Awesome.
If your account gets flagged by Facebook, it can take up to half a year sometimes when they get very busy to get that fixed again.
I see. So we actually asked the audience about, the different, what's the perceptions of the challenges in digital marketing in a poll on LinkedIn. And here are the results. That was done yesterday, but we got about 44 votes. And yeah, the top is the HIPAA and the regulations, um, as well as patients' expectations, what they expect
Hmm.
from the services or the marketing campaign.
Yeah.
And the investment was third, and last the product itself, which is the, because you can spend all the advertising or the marketing you do, but if the actual service or the product provided to the patient, you may get the patient into the door, but you're not going to get repeat customers, and therefore your return on investment in the marketing could be lower. So, what's your take on these results?
Yeah, that is very interesting, especially to see that HIPAA is the first there. And it makes sense because HIPAA, when it is mentioned, it let me let me be honest, it confuses so many people, even professionals. But it really HIPAA is designed to protect healthcare information that is sensitive. And I will just say this: if you, because it's really how to implement HIPAA in the world of technology is a conversation on its own, right? But if you do that right, if you make sure that your PHI is protected, then that kind of information doesn't have a chance to actually flow into your marketing campaigns, right? Because they have been so isolated that your marketing department or the person who is responsible for your marketing has no idea. They don't know names, they don't know ailments, they don't know social security numbers, they don't know
Yeah.
addresses, they don't know any HIPAA protected information to utilize in the first place. So I think it doesn't really directly impact marketing. And if it were to impact it, you can be sure that nowadays the platforms of choice would immediately shut that down because it is absolutely not tolerated anymore. Um,
Awesome.
in terms of the second point, the patient expectations, that is actually a great point that, in my eyes, is very relevant because
Mhm.
the marketing industry, because it is so complex and big, has a tendency to lag behind trends, right? So
Mhm.
I can tell you that still 80 per. It's also, we have to say, in defense of the marketing industry, of the healthcare industry, it is a highly regulated
Mhm.
industry. There's so
Yeah.
many rules to observe, and there's a lot of big players involved. And whenever you have big players, then change and innovation and being on the cutting edge of things is very difficult. So I will
Yeah.
say that. But the point that I'm trying to make is that,
Yeah, that would be like a talk for a completely
yeah,
different innovation in the healthcare space, which is I'm very passionate about. But
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
The point that I would like to make is that there are still so many practices or small groups or maybe even small hospitals out there that have no presence online whatsoever. And if they have it, then it is a very generic, dry Facebook page or profile on the platform of choice. And there's absolutely no human humanization in what you see. It is just a sterile, dry, generic presence. And that is a big problem because, speaking about patient expectations in relation to marketing in healthcare,
Mhm.
you have to find a way nowadays to show the human side of your business. You
Mhm.
have to find a way to, as much as it is possible, personalize your brand if you want to speak about brand
Mhm.
in marketing
Yeah.
terms, right? So you have a few very quote unquote young physicians who
Mhm.
get this, right? They grew up with Instagram and TikTok and they
Mhm.
feel very comfortable. They create online accounts that have sometimes millions of followers. Not that
Yeah.
that is absolutely necessary to be successful, but they just have that advantage to others who just don't know how to navigate that. But it is a challenge because when nowadays the way everyone shops is they do research
They
first.
search online first. Yeah.
Right, they want to see reviews, they want to see what other people say, and also they want to see, well, who is the human behind this.
Yeah.
So um, if
And
you
even word of mouth on online
yeah,
is very significant on social platforms. Like I took like a management of brands and social listening. There are platforms out there that would screen social media platforms, all of them, to see trends, to see whether, and it's a good thing for healthcare companies or providers to be aware of this. This way, if there is any crisis, they can tackle that early on before it gets out of control. And there are endless examples. One of them is Peloton, who had like few, their stock went down 4%
Mhm.
because of one ad that had misconceptions. That was in 20, right at the beginning of 2020. And their stock suffered from that, even though they pulled it out within 1 week. So learning how what's happening online in regards to your brand, or whether you're a healthcare provider or other business, is so critical these days. And that
Yeah.
personal branding as well. You mentioned the humanization of your brand, and I believe that the healthcare, maybe due to regulation or possible liabilities, is behind, because you don't see, almost, they're almost ghosts online.
Mhm.
You find the website, but you'll find the reviews, and that gives like more power to the to the people, because
Yeah.
if you don't manage that online reputation, it can hurt your business.
Yep,
So
that is.
so what's your take on personal branding within the healthcare space and how that could be part of the marketing strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is something that the healthcare field needs to warm up to.
Mm-hmm,
And I understand that it is a concept that might be difficult to grasp, but people want to, at the end of the day, they want to do business and give their health into someone's hands whom
mm-hmm,
they can relate to, whom they trust. And that can really only happen if you show personality. So a few providers and systems say, all right, we'll show people. But when they do that, they do it in such a coded, sterile, boring way, a
mm-hmm,
cold way, right? That because they feel like that is what it needs to be, professional and without any emotions. And that is a little bit of the problem. That would be the I command those to who
mm-hmm,
do, for example, show their providers on video on their websites or online accounts. I command those. That's a great first step. But you need to overcome this idea that you need to be so cold and without any emotions. It's
mm-hmm,
okay to bring a little bit of humor in there. It's okay to bring in the personal side of your providers in there. And that would be the next step. If you can do that, then you'll see that's a big win, because what now happens is that you will build up an organic following because
mm-hmm.
they take a liking to you. You might be very helpful in an educational way, or you might be humorous. There's medical doctors out there who build up
Yeah.
a following by being doctor and comedian at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
The very famous Z Dog is a good example, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in terms of let's say those healthcare providers, whether large systems or more smaller private practices, how do they best leverage their digital marketing? Is it more like through search engine optimization? Is it more like leveraging the social media? We know that a lot of information comes through social media.
Yeah.
The most visited site in 2021 was TikTok. And how do what's your take on the best way for a healthcare provider, let's say within a private setting, because that's where you're most familiar with? What would you advise them for a go-to-market strategy for digital advertising?
Yeah, I think if you speak about the smaller, maybe even self-employed healthcare provider, I think there's a huge opportunity right now to work on something that in marketing we refer to as inbound leads,
Mm-hmm.
where you actually don't have to spend a huge budget on ads.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't, it's actually usually the ads that are really under scrutiny by the platforms, right? So if you use organic content, you really have an opportunity to reach an audience that is organically engaged with you because they like what you say. But you have to have a plan. You have to because you say, how can you best leverage, right? Well,
Yeah.
there's so many things you can do, but you have to really, what often is missing in marketing is having a strategy,
Mm-hmm.
having uh,
Yeah.
we there's this buzzword, the funnel, right? But you got
Yeah.
to have a funnel, but it doesn't need to be a highly complex funnel. It
Be
can be a
simple. Yeah.
three-step funnel, and you can choose one platform that you
Mm-hmm.
enjoy, that maybe
And
in your
focus on it.
personal
Yeah.
life you enjoy. I will say one that is largely underutilized is LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
That is one that would work very well if you feel very confident to create a lot of valuable content. The other one that still has a huge potential, but that is really, you got to be very creative and willing to deal with it,
Yeah.
is TikTok. Because
Yeah.
TikTok is still one of those platforms that truly there's an unthrottled access to organic views, right? So you
Pinterest
have,
is
but you
yeah.
gotta have a strategy. You gotta know what is your goal. What is a we speak in marketing about the candy that you present to your audience,
Yeah.
right? What is the, and the candy is really the pain point that your audience has. What is your goal? What, that is the first step of the funnel. What do you intend to do in the middle with people whom you gain as your audience? And then
Yeah.
of course, what does your conversion look like? So this is something that I believe um, smaller providers have a huge chance to take that on if they choose to invest a little bit of their own time. I think they can do that.
Another platform to add to yours that I saw from that social listening practice we had, which surprised me, was Pinterest. A lot of
Mm,
conversation happening on Pinterest, even and it's even like going up as compared to Twitter and other platforms. So don't underestimate, you know, different platforms and how you can. But
yeah.
as Shankar mentioned, pick one that you're comfortable with and be consistent. I think the key is consistency. If you are using that route through generation inbound leads, through giving value to your target audience,
Consistency.
consistency is key. And, use that 80-20 Pareto principle.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you want to give an example about that one
Yeah.
in your space?
Yeah. Absolutely. I think we can use the example of SEO, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it is
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
it is a field in marketing where there's
Mm-hmm.
so much misinformation, and
Absolutely.
there is a lot of abuse that takes place because marketing companies, some who play a bad game, they leverage that, and they will come and promise you results, and
Yeah.
they make you think that you can pay for the first spot on the Google search engine results, and that is just not the case. And one, if I had to apply the Pareto principle to itself, right,
Yeah.
doing that twice, then we would come up with, well, what are 4% of the actions that give you 64% of the results, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so here it is. It's really not that difficult. It is publish a blog post that is relevant to your target audience
Mm-hmm.
at least once a week.
Okay.
Because Google, at its core, wants to give good answers to questions that people have.
People ask. Yeah.
Okay. Number two is there is something called Google My Business.
Mm-hmm.
That is, if you will, if you do a search online, on the right hand side, very often you will see pictures about a business, you will see reviews, the map, and so on and so forth. And that information needs to come from somewhere. And that somewhere is called Google My Business. And you want to claim your Google My Business profile and populate it, because by doing so you show Google that you actually care about your business, right? So, and
Mm-hmm.
within Google My Business, you can also release, almost like on Facebook, you can release posts within Google My Business, and those
Nice.
posts will then be shown in the search results, right? So that
That's
that is a huge booster for your search engine optimization as well. And what it will also do is it will help you with that local search engine optimization, because
mm-hmm.
most providers want to be found in their city or in their area.
Local area. Yeah.
And what Google My Business has is, you have to register your address. Not only do you have to register your address, you have to also confirm it. They will,
Mm-hmm.
most of the times, they will send you a physical code to your inbox, to your
Address. Yeah.
mailbox, and then you have to enter that. And it also is you have a section where you enter, I service these zip code areas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So very, very important. That is the second thing. The third thing, and I really stick to the 4%, is there is something called the Google Search Console. And what that is the the way of telling Google that you want its robots to visit your website. If you do not do that, yes, Google will eventually find you on its own. But if you do that, it is another signal that you care, and where you basically say, hey, I want to be indexed. Okay, so let me repeat that. You publish one
Once
relevant
a week.
blog post once a week. You give your Google My Business account some love, and you set up that Google Search Console. And
That's
that would
awesome.
be something, if you do that consistently, you can really increase your search engine results tremendously.
That's
One word,
awesome.
one last thing.
Yep.
They always ask me, so how long does it take?
I was gonna ask you that
Right?
exact
How long
same
does it take?
question. Exactly.
And the answer is it takes about 6 months for
Wow.
Google to take you seriously, for Google to say, yes, I think you really want this. I'm going to give you that, right? And I'll share an image here on my video to
Sure.
illustrate that.
Yeah. Let me remove that.
So here you can see that's an example of a customer of mine here, where we started here in the first peak of October 2001, and then we did our thing, and you can see it goes up and down for about 6 months, and then it takes off. It literally goes from 10,000 visitors per month to 36,000 visitors per month. And I have just given you the recipe to make that happen, right? It
That's
is
awesome.
uh, that's it. And
And my
yeah,
question is, does your content need to be in your within Google, or is it searchable? Let's say if you are focusing on LinkedIn and you have your weekly newsletter, is it still searchable on the?
so Google will only look at your website, and it is important that its robots can read the content, and that is the language of HTML. But what Google will also do is look at signals that they have, like a formula that nobody really knows, but experts agree that Google looks at signals that are part of the formula. And one of those signals is, well, does this company care enough about setting up their profiles on all the other important places online?
Platforms.
And LinkedIn is most certainly one of them. And then there is another factor in SEO that is, I wouldn't count that to the 4% because it's more advanced, but that is the incoming links. So in order to understand this, is we can use a simple sports analogy. If you have a player in a football game, whoever gets the most passes, right, that's probably a good
A
player
good
because
player, yeah.
they score the goals, right? So it's the same in Google. If you get a lot of incoming links from important other players in your field,
So they
then
rank
Google
you
will
up.
say it's probably worth paying attention to this website. And
Okay.
by having your social profile set up, and by having others share your blog posts or put your website address in posts, that you create those signals.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, and that was definitely confirmed by you need a professional to help you with that, because when we ask the audience, if you're a healthcare provider, the SEO, the search engine optimization, is that something you should do it yourself or outsource? And we had like 100%, like a consensus that this is something you want to do with professionals like yourself, Shankar. So that was, and there were, those questions were not biased in any way, shape, or form because we asked those questions ahead of time to see, to have a feel for the audience on LinkedIn, what the struggles are, what their needs are, and so on. And it seems that there is a consensus for the SEO that it needs. It's important enough, especially in the digital age, in our digital age, that you need to work with a professional to get that optimized and get those inbound leads that will reduce your marketing efforts, bill, and increase the number of patients that you have. So yeah, the other thing that you do as well is um, to to equip, to humanize the healthcare providers in a way so they are more like approachable. And can you tell us about your efforts within the Shankx Academy?
Yeah, gladly. Thank you for bringing that up.
Sure.
So, as you just mentioned, and what you said is absolutely correct. People and physicians and businesses need professionals to help them. But I also saw and see a lot of physicians that are just starting out. We luckily have a movement of smaller physicians who still want to be
Mm-hmm.
self employed. I see that they are not able right now or at the beginning to hire a marketing agency to do that for them. So,
Mm-hmm.
because that, quite frankly, if you work with an agency that knows a little bit what they're doing, you're going to be at 7 to 10K easily monthly, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
just not possible for everyone.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, is there a path in the middle? Is there a way where we can basically coach the physician to do again 4% of what is needed,
Mm-hmm.
and we can help a little bit with the rest, but in a limited fashion. And that's where I thought, okay, I'm just gonna take all of that and put that into information in an online webinar, into a class that I just gave. And I would take, if you want, if you would allow me, the opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
share that with your followers here.
Absolutely.
I have
Mm-hmm.
a class, 3 easy steps to market yourself as a doctor, that I will be giving on April 9th at 11 a.m. Central Time. And all you have to do is go and register, and you can be part of that. It's going to be a Zoom call. It's not going to be publicly on LinkedIn, and I just need your time and commitment. That's all I'm asking for. It's not going to be recorded, by the way. You have to be personally invested and show up. But yeah, that's something I definitely want to make available to your network.
That's awesome. And yeah, if I look back to when we asked the audience on LinkedIn, what are some of the challenges that you think are critical for marketing? The investment in marketing
Mhm.
was like the third low investment. And you mentioned that it takes up to 6 months to start to see the results, and consistency is key. And we know that healthcare providers have so much demand on their time. So I think having a solution that kind of fills that gap, that hopefully whether them themselves or somebody within their practice can help with that I think it brings value
Yeah,
to
and
them.
yeah, and there's a growing set of tools that is powered by artificial intelligence
Mm-hmm.
that healthcare marketers, and also to some degree the physicians
Yep.
themselves, can
Mm-hmm.
leverage to really take a few intelligent shortcuts. And you just got to know where to use those, because you don't want to
Yeah.
replace yourself with a robot. That would go against the humanization. But you can do a lot to really make the workflow of your building up your personal brand a lot easier and a
Yeah.
lot lower in time investment. Something that may have taken up to 3 hours
Mm-hmm.
2 years ago can be reduced to maybe 20 minutes per day, right? And to
Hmm.
just give you an example, we all know video is just so important.
Critical. Yeah.
Video needs to be edited. It needs to be captioned because we know that most people
Hmm.
online actually
They
interesting
don't. They
watch the
read.
video
Yeah.
without the sound.
Yeah.
So there, 3 years ago, that would have taken you 2 hours to do all of that.
Yeah.
Nowadays, there's tools that help
Yeah.
you reduce that to 20 minutes. And that's just one example of what I will
Hmm.
talk and show in this online class.
That's awesome. So you mentioned there are a lot of AI based tools. Is there non-disclosure thing? Keep this some stuff for your class, but that you can share with the audience here that they can use if they
Yeah,
choose to
yeah. So one
to
hack,
give them a flavor
yeah,
for of
one
that
hack
masterclass.
is,
Yeah.
you know AI has gotten very good at
Mm-hmm.
sounding relatively human in the copywriting space. So
Mm-hmm.
if you, for example, have a thought in the morning, oh, I want to create a post about healthy diet or about
Yeah.
getting enough sleep, there is a tool out there that's called copysmith.ai, I believe. And
Mm-hmm.
you can just give it that one line, the importance of getting enough sleep and its impact on health. And then you click a button, and within 5 seconds, it can generate three different small paragraphs for your social profile to post, right?
Yeah.
So, and they guarantee that those paragraphs are unique too. And
Nice.
you will find that it's actually well written, it's grammatically correct. It
Mm-hmm.
also, interestingly enough, sometimes gives you ideas that you yourself hadn't thought of.
Haven't thought of. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one example.
Yeah.
Copysmith.ai. There's a lot of that's one that I'm not affiliated with them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of options out there. That's just one that came to my mind.
Yeah. One that kind of really blew my mind recently. Is that you can take a video of yourself, and then there are programs out there that with artificial intelligence you can create video from scratch, give it text, and your lips will be matched to that text. So I'm
Yeah,
like, awesome, I hit the jackpot. I can clone myself and there will be hundreds of me.
yeah, yeah,
So yeah, there are tools, a lot of tools that can make your life easier. Again, with whenever there is like predictive analytics or business analytics um, or AI use, be careful not to rely on that 100%
yeah,
because with any algorithm there may be unconscious biases that are embedded in the code, and there are a lot of examples out there. One that come to mind is um, once Apple and JP Morgan Chase, they came up with a new credit card for Apple, and that was a couple years ago. And it happened that a physician couple, they applied for the same card, and then the wife got 20% less credit limit compared to her husband, despite being the exact same, potential earners. They, of course, complained and so on. But again, when you look at it, perhaps the AI algorithms that assigns your credit worthiness is based on data that, unfortunately, right now we have maybe women are paid 20% less than men and took that into account. So it can be embedded in the decision making process. So use those tools with a grain of salt and always have the human component to it.
yeah. It's gonna be very interesting where
Yeah.
AI goes. Yesterday I saw on the App Store you can get mental health therapy with an AI therapist. I mean, I don't know. I haven't tried it. It's kind of it's crazy, but
Yeah.
that's where we're going. And as entrepreneurs, as business owners, which a physician, a doctor, a small clinic, you are business owners.
Yeah.
You just have no choice but adjust to whatever the reality is.
Exactly. And that I'm also so passionate about healthcare that I did an executive MBA with healthcare focus because I think having $1 out of $5 within the US economy is spent on healthcare. about 18%. And that was even before the increased costs over the past 2 years. So it's important to take into account the different facets of the business and still keep the patient to keep it patient centered, because it's about improving people's lives. And when we that takes me to a couple comments that we had over our poll. Do you want to
Oh
go
yeah,
over a couple of them? Do we have time for that?
sure.
Yeah, so one of the comments was, I don't know, if you put people first, or in this case patients, you cannot lose, because healthcare is about patient, improving their lives, getting them to a better, place, curing them, and so on. And another interesting one, and maybe you can comment on that, was that, here it goes. From my experience in healthcare, I think that the industry as a whole is risk averse, which makes sense given goals for patient outcomes. However, when this carries into the marketing world, it can be somewhat paralyzing. The greatest rewards in marketing tend to go to those who are willing to take the biggest risks, and that is not the game healthcare industry is typically willing to play. So, what's your take on that one, Shankar?
Yeah, I agree, but I have a very a simple solution. Be creative and be open to new ways, such as using humor, such as creating communities that
Mhm,
foster something that you care about, such as organizing roundtables, such as being an active participant in what I referred to earlier, a movement that is just tangential to healthcare.
mhm.
And this is the power of being physician, is that everyone
Mhm.
wants to be healthy. Everyone wants
Yeah,
to be able to maybe remotely rub shoulders with a doctor. And then, I know it's kind of annoying when you get these questions, hey doctor, can I ask you about this? And I know you cannot answer that, right? But at the same point, know that that is a superpower that you have as doctors. Any other professional would love it, if people were so hungry for
yeah.
knowledge, for personalized knowledge, right?
Mhm.
The reason they do that is that they know that if they go to the hospital website or the hospital
Yeah,
Facebook page, they will not get a
anything.
humanized answer, right?
Mhm.
So utilize that in creative ways and create a following, serve, educate, and just leave all the risky things on the side.
Mhm.
Don't even mess with it. It's not worth
Yeah,
risking your online reputation for that.
yeah. Another one was like, about copywriting standpoint. So you mentioned the value in creating content, whether online or through your website, into that searchable content for Google. So one of the comments from a copywriting standpoint, I know you have to be extremely careful what you write and how you market. Can you comment on the copywriting part?
Yeah, I looked through the comments, and
Mm-hmm,
it's a very smart one, and I think that person helps write newsletters and helps write copy for the website. And I think what I'm making a guess here, I think she
mm-hmm.
referred to how careful you need to be with giving clinical advice, and also with including knowledge that you may have about your target audience that you shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
have, or at least should not take advantage of.
Yeah,
So I just agree with that. You really, as a as a company in healthcare, you have to be careful, which is why you need to work with professionals who know what they're
professionals.
doing. You cannot
Mm-hmm.
just go on a platform like Fiverr and ask someone, hey, create some posts for me. you
Yeah,
need you need to work with people who understand the industry and know what's at stake, if you
mm-hmm.
take a misstep.
Awesome, awesome. So, from your experience in dealing with a lot of healthcare providers, what is like the most common question you get as a digital marketing expert?
Oh yeah, how much and how fast?
That's two questions.
Yeah,
So,
it's usually the how much
uh-huh,
it comes first, understandably so. Every business owner has that question. And
hmm
I already kind of alluded to that. I
yeah,
think every marketing agency kind of has their own rates, and it also depends on where they are located. But in the US, I would dare to say that generally between 5 and 10K monthly, based on the volume you expect.
okay,
Um, and that's again why I created this course, because it aims at equipping you at least in your
to
first
get
maybe 3, 4, 5 years until
hmm
you can afford an agency. It aims at equipping you to do that
by
a little bit on
yourself.
yourself. Yeah.
That's awesome. That was, yeah. Any other, burning questions that you thought you expected to cover that I haven't? Now is your chance to, you know.
Yeah, I do want to respond to the how fast in
hmm
marketing.
Yeah.
There is rarely fast, and you have to just be patient and trust your process and understand that trust. Within the word trust, there is this component
hmm
of duration, right? So people want to see that you've been around for some time.
hmm
That makes you trustworthy. Um, if there is one exception to going fast, and that is if you have really a lot of money, that most of
hmm
the people who watch us here probably don't have a lot of money to
hmm
pump into mass carpeting marketing strategies, right? Where
hmm
you can afford to be on TV and on the radio and be everywhere with paid advertisement. But that's bigger hospital systems who can do that, and not the people we
And
talk
most,
about.
yeah, and most hospitals are not for profit. And in the US, like their margins are between 1 to 7% tops. Like the best performing hospitals have a 7% margin for their nonprofits. So not many can afford large marketing campaigns on multiple platforms, multiple media forms. So I hope this your masterclass will help some healthcare providers get more creative with their inbound marketing, which
I hope
will
so
help
too,
them.
and
Yeah,
I know it will give enough inspiration and examples to do that. So
absolutely. So yeah, I'm Dr. Nadia Boutawi. I'm really passionate about healthcare. What I do is more moving healthcare technologies to the market or existing ones to larger markets. So if you are within that space and you want to talk, you can go to my featured section to book a free call with me. And with Shankar, if you are a healthcare provider and want to learn how to market yourself to create more inbound leads for your practice or your hospital, you can join him on his masterclass this coming April, Saturday, April 9th at
yep.
11 a.m. Central Time. So that's 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And thank you so much for joining me, Shankar. I really enjoyed our conversation. For the audience, thank you for taking time during your lunch or wherever you are across the globe to join us. And if you're watching this on a recorded session, you can leave any questions or comments in the comment section. And with that, have a great day and enjoy the rest of your week.
Bye
Bye.
everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.